Welcome to episode 4 of Worth 1000 Words, where I attempt to write a 1,000 word short story based on a piece of artwork. If you're new here, my name's Jason. I'm a fiction writer, and today I am fulfilling my promise and we are delving into the world of horror. Today's artwork is by Eugene Korolev, and it is entitled Evilbook II. Kind of a strange title. It doesn't seem very specific. On the ArtStation page, it was noted that it was an entry for a horror art book. So there was a link there, but I didn't really see much. There's also some other accompanying imagery to it that maybe it looks like one of the characters from it. But anyway, look at this thing. I mean, I spotted this pretty quickly. I didn't scroll down very much at all, and I said, this has to be it. It's so cool. I mean, look at all you have going on. You have this weird thing coming up out of the ground with human-like hands and a human-like head. It looks like it's almost in pain or trying to rip the head off or place it on. I have no idea. And then there's these misty-looking or cobwebbed blobs that are being hurled at these guys. I don't know. Why are they here? Why are they fighting this thing? Let's find out. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than this was really cool and inspiring artwork. So thanks, Eugene. Let's move on to the writing. This was a tough one. I guess I was so captivated by the artwork that I didn't even know where to begin. Was this the climax of the scene, the beginning, the middle, somewhere else? So I guess I started with the easy part and started talking about the ground. I just noticed the stones down there. I think that was helpful because, as I said, I did not know where to begin, if it was going to be the action or not. So here you can see that I'm deciding that the scene happens before, the story happens before this scene. Why are these guys here? I don't know yet. We can tell though that it is a very barren landscape. I did notice some trees in the background and some kind of roofing, but I decided they weren't there yet. And here I add a little bit of dialogue. I thought that would help pass the time rather than being just descriptive the whole time. And I'm establishing that maybe there's lies between these two. Maybe the guy in the lead decided to lure this other person here. I'm not sure. And he doesn't respond, or he does, but it's with a hand gesture instead of vocalizing it. And as I seem to be doing a lot lately, I bring a random character into the mix as part of a not so much a flashback, but it's kind of world building a little bit where these guys came from, and maybe not who they are, but that they were sent. There's a village, there's a painting and an elder's study that is reminiscent of what the environment looks like to this character, who I have not named yet. Clearly it's Russian based on the hats though, and or Eastern European, also the artist's name. So I think I'm going to go with that. As though dialogue really helps you create character and move the story along. I feel like, we think in dialogue quite a bit on what we're going to say, and so that helps get the words down, but I decided to not do it anymore. Words were no use. Dangerous even. And I'm talking about something or the ones who dwell here, where they are. And there's a cottage, so I noticed the roof. It's not really a cottage roof of any kind. It almost looks like a tin roof, but I went with a cottage. And here I'm creating an imagery of his friend or companion who's standing tall, listening to the ground, and bringing a little more character here by... First I was thinking of, listening to the sound of railroads, but I wasn't sure if this was some kind of fantasy or what. And I know there's clearly technology there with the shotguns, but I thought it might be a cool way of reminding our protagonist of how his father used to hunt. And now we see here that the man in the lead is stricken with fear. And now, amid the gray environment, we see that the cottage becomes clear to our protagonist. I thought that would be kind of an interesting effect because everything seems so hazy and ethereal. I thought maybe just that would bring a little bit of horror to it. And I note that the door is open with a cave to somewhere else. And now, here is where I decide to bring this creature in. And I thought he looked like he was coming from underneath and probably sprouting up from this whatever kind of structure the artist envisioned here. And first I started with the ground, and what I began as obstacles for the character now are becoming projectiles, essentially weapons. And then, they go up so high enough to be black stars before they rain back down. And then here the ground buckles again, bringing our protagonist down. And I was really struggling here. I didn't know how to build. I wanted to build this up because this creature looks like he's just massive, right? I'm not sure how far away he is it is in the image, but in any case, it burst through a house of some kind or some kind of structure. Here we see that the guy in the lead was injured. He lost his whatever grace he had earlier when he was dodging the stones that were a problem for our protagonist. The man in the lead gets up and he keeps moving forward despite what has happened, despite the stones shooting up from the ground and the ground itself moving, quaking. He's drawn to it. And then here I have our protagonists give a little bit more background on, there was a sign, they were sent here. This was a warning, or I should say, this was a sign that was told by whoever sent them, perhaps the elders or elder. And we bring the earth back again more intensely. And here I am showing that the guy in the lead has established, or he's regained some of his dexterity moving forward on this thing. Why? I don't know yet. I don't know where this is leading. I think he's heading toward the door. Yeah, still the doorway is vacant. He's drawn to it. And this one, it was really hard to get the words out for some reason. I thought it would be easy looking at the image. It just conjures up, there's so much action, so much imagery, so many possibilities. And I think maybe that's what made it a little more daunting, is that I wanted to make it as cool as the artwork. And I didn't know where to begin, to end. Is there a dark outcome? Is there a positive outcome? Does the hero win? I'm not sure. We see that the walls of this structure, this cottage as I describe it, have fallen down, but the roof is suspended. And I got that because it looks like this creature he's holding on to this rooftop or the tin roof or some kind of thing. Like he's emerging from it. And I thought that would be a cool thing to kind of establish, like, I don't know, I guess it'd be more haunting that way, to me anyway. And I'm establishing, or I'm creating these balls of mist, these little blob-like things with cobweb or whatever is all over them. But I didn't quite make them attack yet as they are in the image. And I describe this thing as one of the many trees around it, part of the landscape even. And then I describe the motion of this thing, how it's like this serpent-like body with a spine, many vertebrae. Now we see finally the man in front is struck with horror and stopping, or surprise. And here I'm describing this creature coming up from, letting go of the roof slats and comparing that to a tree, establishing joints and fingers. But still his friend, he's leg locked. He's completely stunned. And now our protagonist decides, like, he needs to go in there and save him. Yeah, this mission is over. The elder's going to have to send an army, more like, now that they've seen what they're up against. Now I'm describing the creature in more detail, almost as if I said earlier, it looks like it's in pain, almost. And I thought there was a interesting contrast between the body material and the head. And now, finally, the man in the lead fires a weapon. He gains his courage, gets his gun, and takes a shot. And we can see now that it has no effect. It even seems to appear to make it worse by more arms growing. And finally, I established the head. I don't know why. To me, it seemed like this head was almost inside of it, and then these hands were pulling it out. It's an interesting pose, how you have these smaller arms and below it, beneath the jaw, and then holding on to the jaw, these hands, and the larger hands holding the head, almost as if they're pushing it out. Or here I note, the smaller arms groping into the jaw as if to make it speak, larger arms coming down from the sky to press crown and cheek. Now I'm talking about how these two men decided, and they came and awakened this thing possibly. And now we know the character, I shouldn't say he's a coward, but he went somewhat unwillingly on this quest. And I'm coming back to these mist-like creatures, these blobs. I guess it might be liquid now that I'm looking at it again. I don't know, it's ethereal either way, it's very ghostly looking. And it looks to me as though this thing is going to throw them. Because now I'm in the thick of the image here, where We have the guy in the lead on the ground being attacked by one of these things, about ready to consume him almost. I don't know, these little hands or these little arms are pummeling him. While our hero, the guy on the right, is frantically trying to reload his gun, but it looks as if he's dropped his cartridge. Well, before that, this is before he's taken the shot, and he's stricken with the same fear of his friend. Everything's out of focus. The barrel's heavy. He can't seem to take aim. But he pulled it anyway. Sloppy shot that knocks him over. And here I note that he knows it's useless, as if seeing what his friend did earlier. But what else is he going to do? I guess he could run, but that's not the decision he made, or I made. And here I'm kind of painting the picture, so to speak. Really cool exhaust or jet of smoke, as I call it, coming out of the shell being injected over his shoulder. I thought that's a really cool action piece. And he's trying to find, I noticed it looks like he's dropping the second shell here, so I note that, he reaches in for the round, or the shell, and he can't find anything. He's finding everything. He's finding the tatters of the seams in his pocket. Something I called model weed. I imagine, I don't know. He had some kind of chew. I think I called it, I was thinking a cigarette at first. And then he finds it. But he's fighting against himself, his fingers being an even tougher adversary. And he loses his hold, and we see here exactly what we see in the painting. Drops to the ground. He's frantically clawing for it. But then a shadow comes around. So I'm ending it here. I wasn't sure where I was going to end it. Do these guys battle this thing? Do they win? Do they get away? You will see that they do not. I decided to make the creature approach and loom over him and cast this dark shadow over the ground. And things are strangely quiet. Too quiet. Can't find his friend. Here we see that the creature is consuming him, pulling him down the throat. And I'm describing the blackness as the cottage doorway. So that was how I decided to end it, bringing it back to the darkness of the open doorway being the mouth of this creature. Not literally, but just I think it was good imagery, and I always like to end things on a note like that, bring it back somewhat. Sadly, I didn't have any cool full circle kind of line like I like to do, and here I'm giving them the most generic Russian names ever, Ivan and Victor. Well, maybe not the most generic, but what you'd think. So, and I make up a Svetro. I don't even know what that is. It just popped in my head. So I'm naming the characters, cleaning up lines here. This one, it was tough because when I got to the end, I really wasn't happy with it. I'm not super happy with how it came out. It's okay. I'd say it's a solid C+. It didn't have quite the edge that I was hoping it would, because this, I couldn't compare. Hey, Eugene, man, you outdid me by miles and miles and miles. Your artwork is way cooler than the story I came up with. So that was an interesting challenge. Trying to compete with this artwork that I already knew was really good. And you can see here I'm well over 1,000 words. Well, not too bad. But I'm trying to see what I can remove. And I knew there were some paragraphs and sentences in there I wasn't really happy with that I knew I could go back and eliminate. Trying to simplify sentences as well, not just cut them. Contemplating following suit. I don't know why, it kind of didn't sound right to my ear, but I kept it. Just working my way down, just swapping names, and you can see I simplified that sentence down to 1062. Sometimes, and I think you do this a lot in the first draft, at least I do, I tend to overwrite and make things a little more wordy than they need to be. But I don't know, it's kind of a nice visual. It's visual to me when I'm writing. I'm sure how everybody writes anyway, I hope they do, is that they're picturing this unfold before them in their mind's eye. And for whatever reason, longer sentences to me help convey not only visuals but feelings. So how the character feels, or how what they're seeing impacts their thoughts or their emotions. And I'm reading King of Thorns for the second time by Mark Lawrence, and I really, really like his writing style. It's simple, but it's poetic. It's not dense, but it has like a nice music to it, and kind of reminded me of, simplify stuff. Don't try to get too fancy with it. I don't think I ever get terribly purple prose, for those of you who are familiar with that term, but I do a lot of run-on sentences. Not in a bad way, just I tend to add adjectives or verbs after everything to give it a rhythm of sorts. But sometimes sentences that are too short, just they're too harsh. They break my flow. Reading as well, not just writing. And I think you need to, mix them up. And I don't feel like I really captured the horrific nature of this image. I'm a little disappointed, but here we are at dropping below 1,000, so I got to end this thing. I'm already at my longest time yet, 1 hour and 30 minutes. I believe I end around 1 hour 38. So I was wrong on my last video about 1 hour 20 being the bar. I went over this time. Once again, intimidated by the awesome artwork. Oh, and if anybody's wondering what I'm using, it's called WaveMaker. It's a Chrome app that you can essentially install like a regular application, so you don't have to run another browser. But it's great. It's free. Support him if you want to. I support him just a couple bucks a month because I really appreciate the software. And Scrivener I used for a long time. I'm on Windows and they don't care about Windows, so I've been looking for other stuff. I've been using Google Docs a lot, but this really, I like the formatting. I like the font. I like the way it reads. I like that it's not bright white. It's a cool little lean program, and it syncs with Google Drive. So renaming, cleaning up stuff, as always. I'm at 1,000 even, and probably considering, wow, am I done? I'm pretty close to being done. Yeah, just trying to bring that back. And that's about it. The ground was cold and ripe with stones. Ivan had to watch his feet more than what lay ahead, each and every one vying to turn his ankle. Didn't matter much, the view. Solid gray, not a tree or bush to remind him he was home. Well, not home, but close. Too close for his liking. This a joke to you? Ivan said, sick of the silence, the lies growing as large as the distance between him and Victor, who expertly danced around every obstacle, shotgun at the ready, eyes trained on the expanse of nothing. Victor's response was a flick of 2 fingers over his shoulder, and, as if he held the supposed magic of crazy Svetro back home, the sky opened up. A painting, smears, smudges, as he'd seen reflecting lantern light in the elder's study, but with dimension far beyond what layered the canvas. Ivan's hand reached out despite the knowledge that it was no painting. It was real, locked to the very earth he treaded. Words were no use, and dangerous at that now, if Victor had told the truth. No point in arguing. Forward was all that was left. Victor stopped and then lowered himself with ear to dirt. Ivan remembered his father hunting that way, listening for the hoofbeats thumping their way through the forest, leaving clues of mud and frond and rotten trunk in their wake. But they weren't hunting. What they sought couldn't be hunted. Found, perhaps, bargained with, but nothing more. Victor turned, ear dripping soil, and opened his mouth, his eyes following suit to create a mask of fear. The cottage became clear now, rendered in such impossible brightness amid the cold gray. The door was open, a cave to somewhere else. Stones shot from the ground, bullets, arrows, something more deadly. Ivan looked up to see them flock high enough to be black stars before they rained back down. Ivan fell to his knees with arms over his head. The ground buckled, hurling him onto his back, and he rolled out of the way just in time to avoid a cluster of stones. Victor wasn't so lucky, looking back at him with blood trails running from hairline to chin, one eye closed from trauma. Then Victor had a moment of clarity, a second wind, that allowed him to avoid the rest and regain his footing. The stubborn fool stumbled forward, not heeding what had to be a warning. Still, the doorway was vacant. "Victor! They spoke of such signs. We should go back, before—" Again, the earth heaved, the horizon bulging, breaking, the cottage the first victim of its wrath. Victor didn't listen, moving on with the grace he had shown before the storm of stones. The cottage roof parted, and walls fell away, but not the roof. It remained suspended. Mist swirled in the shadow of the roof, which looked to be supported by the trunk of one of the gnarled trees around it. Victor finally halted, huffing a mist of his own as he took in the sight. The roof slipped away, or was let go, rather, as the tree moved hypnotically, serpent-like. Branches unfurled, bending on joints, tipped with fingers. Victor was a good 50 feet away, leg locked, shotgun barrel buried at his feet. Ivan had to reach him, pull him away, carry him if he had to. It was over. The elder would have to send another, an army more like. More arms grew from the center of the mass, all sizes, writhing in pain, birth, or both, reaching inside itself as much as for the clouds. A flash ignited the gray. Victor had somehow gathered his weapon. The blast fed this thing, birthing fingers, then hands, then arms. They went inside again, then out, straining, muscles tight against skin, if one could call it that, until something brighter was born. Breaking through a membrane, a great head emerged, soulless eyes, jaw lined with teeth both blunt and sharp, smaller arms groping at that jaw as if to make it howl, larger arms coming down from the sky to press crown and cheek. Ivan couldn't help but interpret it as pain. This abomination awakened from a slumber of peace, perhaps, awakened to revisit that pain, by them. I didn't want this, Ivan said. A thought that should have stayed inside, deep and silent. The creature pivoted on its many joints, arms waving, fingers stretching, then contracting to fists. Pain indeed. The mist coiled around the creature's base and the wreckage of the cottage, and it reached for it, plucking it away to hold it overhead and bring it back down, releasing it to fly toward them. One hit Victor, who had lost his grace. This mist had grown arms as well now, Ivan could see, and they thrashed at Victor, every part of him. Ivan then cocked his weapon and took aim, pressing the butt firmly to his shoulder. Everything was out of focus, the barrel heavy, moving everywhere but its target. But he pulled the trigger, knowing it useless. The shell ejected over his shoulder in a jet of smoke, and he went to reload. Digging in his pocket, his fingers numbly searched for another shell. Everything but the shell he found. The tatters of the seam, the soggy remnants of mottle weed that he wished was tucked between lip and teeth. Wait! There it was, cold, as hard as stone. The powder behind the buckshot ready to, at least, buy him some time. His fingers were an even tougher adversary, losing their hold, and the shell tumbled to get lost among the stones. He dropped and clawed for it. The coal-black ground became darker then, the coldness harsher. Too quiet. Even Victor was nowhere to be seen. Ivan looked up in time to see teeth, both blunt and sharp, drop around him like a portcullis. Great hands snatching him with ease, jamming him into the blackness that matched the cottage doorway. All right, I made it to the end. Yet again, I finished the story. How was it? It was all right. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't super happy with it. The artwork is so awesome, and I just don't feel the story fully captured that awesomeness. I guess we can examine it a little bit. I'll try not to go too far into it, but let's take the story at its core. So you had these two men going somewhere. I established they were from a village. There was an elder sending them for some kind of task. I was a little mysterious about it because I didn't know. A lot of times I find the story as I write, but not this time. One thing I do like is that I killed everybody. There was no rising from near defeat. The guy literally got eaten, and that was it. Part of that was the word count. I did have an idea where I was thinking maybe he does get eaten, and then he finds that shotgun shell at the last moment while he's being digested slowly and shoots his way out. So if you like that better, I'm sorry. I took longer than I ever have on any of these. I don't know if I was in a bad mindset. I was intimidated, possibly, like I said, conjure the words that could do justice to the painting. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was having an off day. You got to have a little struggle in there, otherwise you're not learning, right? And I don't feel like I fulfilled my promise in doing actual horror. Yes, the image was horrific. My writing was horrific. not in the good way. So I think maybe what I'm going to do is try to find something that's maybe a little more traditional next time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you keep writing. Would love to hear your comments, and I will see you next week. Thanks. If you'd like to read the story in its non-video format, check the link in the description. I didn't add anything else. Promise. Thanks again.